It's only been a year since Offworld Industry purchased the Squad 44 IP, but in that year, they have officially cemented themselves in World War II gaming history. The Pacific Theater is officially coming, and it's starting with IWO JIMA. Now, to be honest, we already knew this. We saw that little teaser from a few months ago, but these are the first official images of the actual IWO JIMA map, confirmed to be released by the end of this year. Supposedly, IWO JIMA is also just one of the 3 planned Pacific Theater maps we will eventually be getting, but we don't actually know what the other 2 will be at this time, and we also don't have a timeline on those being released. But honestly, if they're going to be the level of quality that IWO JIMA is, I'm more than happy to wait for them. So if you missed it, there was a Squad 44 dev chat on October 4th, led by the community manager Luna, with Mercury Art's director and lead level designer Gunslinger and 2 of his assistant level designers. In this dev chat, not only did we get to see these incredible first shots of IWO JIMA, but the devs also spent over an hour going through the level design. They talked about performance, and they even answered questions about command call-ins and flamethrowers. There was a lot to unpack here, so this is what we all know now. When we actually load up to invade or defend IWO JIMA, we'll find that it's been recreated to a 1-to-1 scale, meaning that this isn't just some map you can simply land on the beach and bunny hop your way up to the top of Mount Suribachi. No, it's going to be an actual hike. There's plenty of play areas, and the objectives are massive. There is 2.7 kilometers of beach alone, and this beach has been painstakingly recreated using aerial reconnaissance, invasion photos, and other source imagery to not just recreate the landscape, but to also properly place things like craters, trench lines, pillboxes, hidden MG bunkers, and gun pits. There are over 150 pre-designated and pre-placed gun positions. Now, some of these may actually be working with machine guns or other weapons for the defenders, but the others would have been destroyed by the initial 3-day naval bombardment which occurred before the invasion that we'll be playing as. Because of this bombardment, there's also over 2,000 craters on the island. Some large, some small, some massive. It's a huge variety, and it's going to make for great fighting positions, not just for the infantry, but also create obstacles for vehicles.
Yeah, so it's a lot deeper compared to Utah. It has a lot more elevation, as you can tell from the picture. Like the back end of the beach has a lot more elevation going on. It's rising a lot higher. Yeah, and it's about like the deep playable area. Let's focus on the area where the players will actually be able to run around.
Right.
That will be about 2.7 kilometers of beachside.
Now, the devs stated that they wanted to give IWO JIMA the respect it deserves, since it's more than the dark and gritty, blown-out beach that we've seen in movies like Flags of Our Fathers or Letters from IWO JIMA. Not that those representations were completely fictional, but they were a little more Hollywood than real. The island, of course, has a notorious black sandy beach, but there was also plenty of vegetation and fields inland that were not obliterated by the Navy, and the devs wanted to make sure that those were included as well.
Yes, there are vast areas that are, like you show right now, like pretty desolate, destroyed, burned down. We have huge craters on the island, many craters on the island. But also, IWO JIMA is a lot greener than people think or people know from Hollywood movies. Like if you're watching any kind of mainstream media IWO JIMA, you're usually just seeing black sand, rocks, and that's it. That's IWO JIMA for them. If you look at actual images taken from the invasion, from the battles, you see like, oh, there's trees, like not big ones, but small ones, those screw pines. Oh, there's bushes. Okay. Oh, they had fields there. They even were like doing agriculture there to a certain degree, you know? So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, actually, that people do not know from mainstream media.
Because the island is so large and it's being created in a 1-to-1 scale, we're not actually going to be able to play the entire thing, but instead a huge section of the southern part of the island, including Airfield Number 1, which is the southern airfield, and of course Mount Suribachi. The devs state that this is plenty of island though. Underground tunnels and bunkers will be playable, and they have been so well designed that they promised we wouldn't be constantly running into dead ends. No, these tunnels are made to accurately portray how the Japanese would actually use them, so movement to and from fighting positions, the weapon storage areas, and entry and exit points should be plentiful. Now, as amazing as this is, the biggest question I had was in terms of performance. This is a cool map, but if I only get 5 FPS, it's not even worth it. Now, for the performance aspect, the devs said that was their top priority to make sure this performed well. And although there will be a little bit of sea haze that may mask the Navy fleet in the background, which actually does have modeled battleships and aircraft carriers, including the USS Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, Enterprise, Lexington, and Wasp, the island itself is not going to be plagued with fog in order to help improve performance. The aim was to be able to give players the opportunity to make that hike up the mountain, look down, and then be amazed at what you had accomplished. That wouldn't have been possible if you just got a face full of fog.
I also see another question about view distances and the amount of fog that we're gonna have.
Yes.
It will be lighting dependent. So far, there is no lighting layer with massive amounts of fog. You will always have a certain degree of fog just because it looks better. Like a level without fog looks like trash. You don't want to look at that.
Looks really weird.
Yeah, it looks really bad. Like you need the distance haze. You need stuff in the distance to appear slightly hazy. And also, to be quite frank and honest, we need a certain amount of haze and fog in the distance to mask the fleet a little bit.
Right.
Because we do not have super high poly models for all the battleships and aircraft carriers. So we have to mask that off a little bit. So you can still see a little bit about it, and you can see like, okay, there's a huge fleet, and I can make out the outline of an Iowa class, or
Right.
I can make out the outline of an aircraft carrier, the Enterprise, or whatever. But you're not able to directly tell, like, okay, I don't know, is somebody standing on the deck or something like that.
Instead, they really made sure to make sure the assets, the textures, the map itself was built with performance in mind, so hopefully we're not going to run into the issues that we've seen in past maps. Now, as you do wander around Iwo Jima, you'll also see that nearly everything is a completely new asset. Japanese-style buildings, their bunkers, even the Japanese trenches are actually all very different from what we'd see in Europe. So simply copy-pasting assets from maps like Karantan would make it painfully obvious that this was not Japanese. The level of detail here is staggering, and just from these pictures alone, you can tell that everything looks so different from what we currently can play with in Squad 44. In addition to the map itself, the devs also gave us a little insight on how games would play out. Due to the sheer size of the map, unlike Utah Beach, where you can easily get spawn killed by defenders in the city and the bunkers overlooking the landing zone with machine guns, Iwo Jima's sprawling wide open beach will obviously allow for pockets of resistance and machine gun nests and plenty of ambushes on the beach that will need to be cleared, but you won't have people simply sniping at you from Mount Suribachi. The devs hinted that small arms would not be effective if you're up the mountain, but that may mean you could have emplaced mountain artillery pieces or other ways to hit troops landing.
Also, it's helpful that we chose one-to-one scale, because usually, like, as a player going into Iwo Jima, you would be thinking like, okay, the Japanese have the big volcanic mountain. They are gonna hold it. They are gonna shoot down at the Americans on the beach and just obliterate them. Then I was on the mountain myself after we created it. Yeah, there you can see it. Like, that's the western flank of the mountain.
Right.
So then you're on top of the mountain and you look down to the beach and you start realizing you are not going to shoot anybody from up here. The
It's quite a
distance
distance,
is
yeah.
it's way too big of a distance. Like, not with a rifle, not with a machine gun, maybe with a big gun after 5, 6, 7 shots adjusting.
They also mentioned that both sides will have tanks, so expect to see some lighter Japanese tanks and of course Shermans, but we should also be getting flamethrowers. Obviously, infantry carried flamethrowers were used by the Marines, but flame tanks were also a huge asset, and it does seem like the Squad 44 devs are finishing up development on proper flame weapons. Now, nothing was confirmed in this chat here, but it was simply hinted at, and I would be honestly surprised if we got Iwo Jima without the flamethrower. Now, because Iwo Jima is a Japanese island surrounded by an entire US naval fleet, command call-ins also need to be adjusted. It wouldn't be realistic for the Japanese to call in strafing runs or dive bombers in an airspace controlled by the Navy, so instead they'll be able to use the Type 98 320mm mortar. This thing was massive and could create craters that spanned nearly 8 feet in diameter. Now, for the Marines, well, your artillery is just offshore, and you'll be able to call in shore bombardment from the 16-inch naval guns. The devs promised, whether you're on the Marines or whether you're on the Japanese, the command call-ins will be devastating and will result in plenty of gore. We didn't get any more info on potential landing craft or other vehicles and weapons, but if you did miss it, a while ago the devs did previously showcase a few of the newer small arms that they will be releasing. We have the Japanese Type 99 machine gun, the Type 14 Nambu pistol, the American 50 cal, and the Winchester Model 12 12-gauge shotgun. For a full weapon breakdown, the community manager Luna did say they will be having a weapons showcase sometime in the future, so keep an eye out for that. But what do you guys think? Are you excited about the Pacific in Iwo Jima? Are you ready to land on the black sand beaches and get obliterated by machine guns and artillery? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. But that's it for me. Until next time, peace.